Hello, everybody. Welcome. Welcome to our webinar tonight. We will be focusing on how to start or advance your career in the football industry. So thank you very much for joining us. My name is Diego Valdez. I am the director at the Sports Business Institute Barcelona. And in just a moment, we will begin the presentation. I just want to make sure that the sound is coming through okay. So I would just ask you in the chat box to type in okay, and also type in where you're connecting from. We always like to know where our audience connects from. So if you want to just go ahead in the chat box and type okay, and let us know where you're connecting from. So, okay, we got from Sweden, we got from Spain. Where else we got from? Yes, we have from Nottingham. Okay, excellent. By the way, we're also live on Instagram. Okay, from the UK, the US, okay, and connections working well. Belgium, Gdynia, Poland, Oxford, all good from Javi. Okay, fantastic. Well, that's great. Good to hear that the sound is coming through. So let's begin with the session tonight. It should last approximately 45 to 60 minutes. We're going to do a presentation, and then we're going to open it up for your questions because we want to know more about what you want to discuss tonight. So, as I said, my name is Diego Valdez. I am the director at the Sports Business Institute Barcelona. And what we do is we specialize in providing training for those that are looking to start or advance their career in the football industry. We deliver courses online and face-to-face, and we've worked with clients from organizations such as the ones that you see here on screen: FIFA, UEFA, La Liga, Real Madrid, Barcelona, Man United, Liverpool, the list goes on. We've worked with lots of executives from different clubs, different federations, sports properties worldwide. I personally am also an international football journalist, and in the past, specifically, and still to some degree, I work from time to time covering different events. I've worked in the past covering FIFA finals, UEFA finals, CONCACAF tournaments, etc. So that's my introduction. And Sports Business Institute Barcelona, well, we're a private institute based in Barcelona, Spain. In 2013, we expanded and we opened an office in North America. And as I mentioned before, we are focused on helping those that want to start, that want to advance their career in the sports industry, on the business side of the sports industry, and specifically football. What we do is mainly we offer online training. Our courses are practical. They're designed for people that have the desire to work in the football industry. From time to time, we get consulted for our expert opinion to talk about different matters regarding the business side of football. Here you see some publications where we've appeared, whether it's goal.com. We also collaborate and participate with FC Business, some local newspapers in Spain, when we are consulted for our opinion on the business side of sport. Also, we attend different congresses and events internationally to provide our research, to provide our insights on the business side of the football industry. And we also take part in some events as delegates because we are also keen to learn what's happening in the business side of football all over the world. So we participate in congresses and events worldwide to be up to date, to keep abreast, so that the material that we have to offer to our community is always the latest, the most up to date, and the most relevant on the business side of sports. So here's a few pictures from, like I said before, my experience as a journalist. But as I always like to say, tonight is not about me, it's not about us, it's about you. It's about you guys listening in. Because you're here, you're spending some time with us, and we want to deliver value to you. So this is what we're going to run through tonight, and this is what you can expect to learn over the next 45 to 60 minutes. By the way, if you want to engage with us, our Twitter handle is at the bottom. It's SBI_Barcelona. So feel free to use that handle and put us in a tweet. Let us know what you're thinking about this webinar, and also if you have any questions, like I said, we're going to open it up at the end for a Q&A. But if you have any questions that you want to throw out there, we have our team monitoring Twitter as well, so feel free to engage with us there. Okay, well, like I said, tonight what we're going to cover: number one, we're going to look at the three main factors that will determine your success in the football industry. So grab pen and paper, because there's three key factors that we've seen time and time again that help people get to the next step in their career. So that's number one. Number two, you're also going to find out about different career paths available in the business side of football. So there's numerous careers that perhaps you haven't considered. Most of the time, we tend to think about working in football that means working for a football club, and that's what we're going to see. There's numerous other opportunities, numerous other paths that are available that perhaps we haven't considered, or rather haven't given it some thought. So that's what we're going to focus on, so that you have the understanding as to what's available out there. Also, we're going to give you some key tips on how to improve your CV, your cover letter, and also we're going to talk about something called a self-candidature. So some of you who have been part of our community maybe have heard us talk and express strong recommendation for this. So we're going to talk about that. So like I said, keep pen and paper handy. And then we're also going to look at what to avoid, what mistakes that people tend to make when applying for a position. So what we should be looking out for so that we don't make those types of mistakes. Finally, we're going to look at how to increase your network. As you all know, having a strong network, building relationships is important in any sector, and particularly the business of football. So that's another key point that we're going to look at and help you, provide you some tips as to how to optimize your networking. Finally, we're going to talk a little bit about our course that starts next week, the Football Marketing and Management course. And I've recognized some names here tonight, some people that have taken this course. So really glad to see some familiar names on the webinar tonight. So that's what we're going to be looking at. So next point, why are you here? Well, let's try and see if this webinar is something that perhaps resonates with you. So there's three types of profiles that we're targeting this webinar to. So number one is if you're currently studying, if you recently graduated and you are looking to break into the business side of the football industry. So go ahead and type in the chat box if that's you, type A, because I want to know which category you fit in. So if that's you, type it in the chat box, put A, and that way we'll know, if you're a recent graduate, if you're just studying and looking to break into the the business side of the football industry. Second target for tonight is if you're currently working, if you have some corporate experience, if you've been working in another sector, and you're looking to transition by leveraging those skills and that business background. So go ahead in the chat box and type B if that's you. If you've been working for a certain number of years in another industry and your passion is football and you're looking to see how you can leverage those skills, go ahead and type that on the chat box. Okay, so we see some A's, we see some B's, A and B's. Okay, good. And then the last one is if you're already working in football. So maybe you already have a career in football and you're working in a particular area, but you're looking to grow, you're looking to develop, you're looking to take that next step in your career. And at this stage, perhaps you're considering new options. So go ahead and type that in the chat box. So C, okay, so we see a bit of a mix. We have A, B, and C. So that's great. So whether you're in A, B, or C, in either of those categories, this webinar is for you, because that's what we're going to be focusing on. By the way, again, I want to thank our community on Instagram. We're live on Instagram, so go ahead if you want and follow us there. So let's begin. And the first question that I would ask you guys listening in tonight is, are you interested in working in the football industry? So, take a couple seconds to think about that. Are you interested in working in the football industry? And I'm sure a lot of people are interested, right? But then I'm going to ask you this question, and perhaps it's a more important question. Are you committed to working in the football industry? Now, there is a difference. Even though the question may seem relatively the same, there is a difference, because there is a difference between being interested and then there's a difference between being committed. And the reason I say this is because, as you probably know, the sports industry, the football industry in particular, is a competitive sector, and it takes a lot of commitment. It takes a lot of hard work. It takes a lot of effort to really get to, obtain our career goals. And a lot of the times there's people that show an interest, but then when it's time to put, that hard work and to put in hours to dedicate to really, put that effort in to, to optimize opportunities, there's some that fall off the wagon. So it is very important, and I'm sure that everybody that is here who's taking the time to listen to this is committed, and I really acknowledge you for being here tonight and taking the time to listen in. So I can definitely see that all of you here are committed to learning and to understanding a little bit more about how to optimize your opportunities. Now, what does it take? What does it take to get a job in the football industry, to enter into a position in football? And again, we're telling you this because we've dealt with hundreds and hundreds of people that have come through our courses, and we've seen the patterns of success. We've seen the people, and we've seen those that really get to where they want to go. And then unfortunately we see also some that don't necessarily take the persistence, don't have the dedication, don't put in the hard work. So that is very important to understand. Now, one thing that I've highlighted here is patience. And the reason I highlighted patience is because it takes time. And the sooner you begin to realize that this is a marathon and not a sprint, the sooner you're going to be, working towards the right, or having the right approach rather, to optimizing your opportunities. A lot of the people, especially younger people, have a lot of hunger, have a lot of drive, and they want to see the results right away. But the reality is that based on the experience that we've seen, and I can tell you from my own personal experience, it takes time, it takes effort. But if you have the passion, and that's why the passion is there at the end, if you have the passion, that'll all drive you, that'll all fuel you. So you'll have the dedication, you'll have the hard work, and you'll be patient because you'll be passionate every day that you're getting to where you want to go, and following your career objectives. Now, excuse me, what are some key factors to get ahead? Well, as it says here, to start or advance a career in football or any other industry for that matter, there's three key factors that will determine your success. There's others, of course, but three main factors that you should be looking at. Number one, you have to have knowledge. You have to have an understanding of the industry you want to work in. So in this case, if you want to work in football, you've got to understand the business side of it. How does it work from the inside? How do clubs negotiate with brands and their sponsors? How do players negotiate with clubs? How do players negotiate with agents? How are events managed and run? So all of this you need to know if you want to work in sports. There's evidently you can bring in your skills and your background from other sectors, but it is important that you have the knowledge of the business side of sports if you want to work in that sector. So that's number one. Number two, contacts, network. I mean, we're going to stress this time and time again. And again, this is no no unique element to the football or the sports industry. In any sector that you want to get ahead, it's important to build relationships, to build contacts. So we're going to talk about some key points as to how you can optimize your network, how you can grow. A lot of you may be thinking, well, I don't really have a network, I'm just starting out. Well, we're going to give you some tips, so stay tuned. How to reach out, connect with people the right way, because there's good ways to reach out to people and not so good ways. So we're going to look at that as well. And then finally, another factor of success is the guidance that you have. I mean, if you can have the option of having a mentor or reaching out to someone who has experience in this field, you're going to have more opportunities for success because you're going to be, talking to someone who can guide you, who can mentor you, who can provide you some advice. So those are three things to keep in mind, and we're going to talk a little bit more about each one of them in just a moment. But keep those in the back of your head, and like I said, if you want to do some notes, write some stuff down, feel free to do that. Thanks again to our Instagram community. I'm just switching screens here between Instagram and our webinar platform. I know all of you who are watching us on Instagram cannot see the slides, but hopefully by listening in to what we're talking about, you can take some value out of this webinar. Okay, so let's continue. Knowledge about the industry. Well, what does that mean? Well, you can get that either from having some type of qualification that it's recognized in the industry. Also based on some previous experience. Many of you perhaps already have experience working in football or in sports. So of course this experience is very valuable. And like I mentioned before, you may have experience in other sectors. And let's not forget that the business of sport or the business of football is a business. So it doesn't just mean that they need professionals with sports management backgrounds. There's people who are working in football who don't necessarily know much about football because they bring a specific skill, whether it's in IT or in accounting or in finance or in HR or or in marketing. So obviously it helps if you know the business of football, but that doesn't mean that you cannot leverage your previous experience. So that's the three key things as well that you should need to consider when we're talking about what knowledge is and what an understanding of the business side of football really entails. Secondly, contact. Well, like I said before, this can be personal relationships, that can be network. And how do you do this? Well, you can attend courses, you can attend conferences, you can attend events, you can volunteer. The key thing is to be out there, reaching out to people, connecting. And in this day and age that we live in, with all the platforms online that we have, such as LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, all the others that are out there, it's much easier to connect with people than it was, say, 15, 20 years ago, where you had to actually meet face-to-face. Today, obviously, face-to-face is important, and perhaps nothing replaces face-to-face contact. But the fact that you can connect with people online, and again, I can tell you from our personal experience at SBI, we've built partnerships, we've built connections, we've built relationships with a lot of people who we haven't even actually met, because we've had such a strong connection and relationship in the online world. So take advantage of that. Take advantage of the online tools that are available today. But we'll talk a little bit more about that as well. And then finally, as I said, career guidance. Well, what does that mean? If you can find a mentor, if you can find someone who can provide you advice, the more information you can learn from. Always keep growing. Always keep reaching out to people who can help. And there are people who want to help out. So it's important to find the right mentors. Because at the end of the day, if you can map out a career plan with clear objectives, you're going to have half the battle. There's nothing that frustrates people more than putting in the hard work and then not seeing the results. And a lot of the time that's due to the fact that you may be putting a lot of work, but you're not necessarily putting it in in the most efficient manner. So having a mentor can always help you, because that's the person, or that's the feedback that you can get, who can lead you in the right direction. So those are things that, to keep in the back of your mind of what is important when we're looking at looking to get ahead in the business side of sport. Now you may be thinking, well, what types of jobs are out there when we talk about football? Are there really all those many jobs out there so that I can add any value to the industry? Well, absolutely. Like I mentioned before, it's not just about working for your favorite football club. There's numerous opportunities. These are just some recent statistics, and I'll read them out again for our Instagram Live community. There's approximately 550,000 sports-related companies across 204 countries around the world. By the way, these are from a report from a consulting firm that was done a couple of years ago. So the number keeps growing year in, year out. It is estimated that the sports industry worldwide is worth $600 billion US. So it's an industry that is a very lucrative business. So there are opportunities, and roughly 10 million people are employed in the sports industry worldwide. Again, these are numbers based on A.T. Kearney Management Consulting report. Now, here you see a picture. Last night we had El Clásico in Barcelona. This is a picture of Camp Nou. So what I want you to do is I want you to take a couple of seconds, and I want you to think, how many jobs can you identify in this picture? How many sports jobs or how many football jobs can you identify in this picture? So go ahead and type them in the chat box. I'm interested to hear what you guys have to say. And in the meantime, I'll grab a little bit of water. So what type of jobs would be, some jobs that you could see when we're talking about hosting a match between two football clubs? So anybody, just go ahead and type while I have a drink of water. Okay. Well, basically, we can look at this picture and we can say, well, there's two football clubs playing, right? So you could work at either of those two football clubs. Okay, perfect. Let's keep going. Well, what else? This match is, televised, or the Clásico at least was televised all over the world. So there's audiovisual companies, there's technicians. Look at the pitch as well. There's groundsmen, there's groundskeepers that take care of the pitch. There's physios, there's medical departments that treat the players. There's also the whole operations team behind the event and making sure that there's security around the stadium. Obviously, there's the stadium that was built several years ago, but there's construction companies that are involved, as well the corporate hospitality. all the VIP boxes and the catering. So, there's numerous opportunities just by looking at this picture. So just to give you an idea, jobs in football involve working for clubs, federations, governing bodies, marketing agencies, licensing agencies as well, media, sponsors, foundations, education, medicine and science. This is a particularly big one nowadays with, all of the analytics and all of the data available both from the performance side and the business side. There's digital social media, there's connectivity, catering, lighting, security, you name it. There's transportation, leisure and health, and these are just a few. So, there's numerous opportunities. So what I mean by this is that, many times when we talk about working in the football industry, we tend to think, well, it's working for a football club. But the reality is you may have some skills that are transferable that can be used in a different area. So maybe you have some marketing background, and that means that you can leverage those skills and work in sports marketing, whether it's departments at governing bodies or clubs or federations, but also a lot of brands that sponsor clubs and players and tournaments. So just to say that there's a lot of skills that are transferable. There's a lot of opportunities available when we look at the business side of football. These are some numbers published in a report around the Premier League. And as you can see, over 6,000 people are employed by the Premier League and its clubs. But if you take it one step further, there's over 65,000 jobs in the Premier League and the Premier League club's supply chain. So all of what we've just talked before, a lot of the suppliers, a lot of the providers, over 65,000, and this is just the Premier League. So imagine if we multiply this by all the leagues around the world and not just the top leagues. If we look at first division, second division, I mean, we're talking massive numbers of jobs worldwide. And as you can see, full-time employment jobs, over 100,000 who are supported in the UK. So there's opportunities out there. So this should be something that you look at and it doesn't discourage you. Rather, it should encourage you to look at this and say, if this is something that you want to pursue, there are options out there. Now, of course, this is important to understand, but it's also important to be very clear on what your objective is and where do you want to take your career. Now, you may be thinking at this stage and you may be saying, well, I want to work in football, or I want to optimize my opportunities of working in football, but I'm not necessarily sure of where I should focus or where I want to go. That's fine. The key thing is to understand that, looking at your own profile and seeing, what you want, why you want it, and this is important. Understand why you want it, and then visualize yourself. Where do you see yourself? What are your strengths? What are your advantages? Where do you think you could add value? And what are some of your passions? Where would you like to go? And if you can find that right mix between what you like to do and what you're passionate about, but also what you're good at, and understand the market and what are some of the needs. If you can fill those three questions, then you're going to probably find an area where it's going to cater to your strengths and your passions, and it's also going to be related to something that is adding value to the industry. So also important to think about how will you acquire the knowledge and contacts to get ahead, as we talked about before. So keep that in the back of your mind when you're thinking about your next step. So visualize yourself, understand where you want to go, and also why you want it. A lot of times people don't take time to think about the why, but it is very important to understand why you want it. And the sooner you know your passion and your purpose, the more clear your vision is going to be. And it's like, we always hear this example, right? This pretty basic analogy, but it's like a GPS. You may be driving around all over town, but if you don't really have a set destination, you may put in a lot of kilometers, but not really get anywhere. So if you put in the GPS, you want to get to a certain location, then you have a clear path. And this is not to say that there won't be any roadblocks and you won't have to swerve around. Evidently, this is going to happen. But the more clear you are on where you want to go, the easier it's going to be for you to set out your direction. If you're not clear on where you want to go, that's an exercise that you should be thinking about now, and thinking about, okay, maybe I need to understand more about the industry so that I learn which areas are available and I could add value in. So think about that. Now, when applying for jobs, essentially, and this is again for any sector, but in sports, it's about answering three key questions. When you go to an interview, when you go talk to people, they really want to know three key things, even though they will ask them in different manners, and there will be different types of interviews or different types of conversations with people that you're networking, who you can perhaps build a relationship or even find an opportunity to work with them. They really want to know three key things. Number one is, can you do the job? Number two is, will you do the job? And number three is, will you fit in? Now, let's break those down. Can you do the job? Well, first of all, are you qualified for the position? Do you have the right skills? Do you bring the right knowledge? Have you ever had experience in football or sports before? So this is important that you prove that to them. And if you don't have the skills, if you don't have the knowledge, you should be looking at ways to acquire that. Second question, will you do the job? So employers are looking at this because they're thinking, well, we don't just want someone who's passionate about the game. We don't want super fans. Everybody's a fan. We want people who have the right motivation. We want people who have the right career objectives, that are not just here to try and see their favorite players, that are here because they have a passion about business, they have a passion about sport, and they want to bring those two together and add value to an organization. So it is very important. Will you do the job? And then thirdly, of course, like in any job, they want to know if you'll fit in. Are you can you relate to the organization's culture? Is it the right situation, the right timing for you? Because a lot of times, you may be thinking, my passion is to work in media, and I'd love to work with a club in the media department, traveling with the first team and being part of the media department. But maybe you've just had, twins, and you have, kids, and you want to spend time at home. Well, maybe it's not the best situation for you at that particular time, right? If you have a couple of babies at home, I mean, this is just a very simple example, but what I mean is they will be looking if you're the right fit for them, and of course, from your end as well, if you're the right fit for what you want to do. So it is important that you consider these three questions, because at the end of the day, no matter how you break it down and how the questions come in, employers want to know those three key things. Can you do the job? Will you do the job? And will you fit in with the organization and the culture of the club or the competition or the brand or the company that you're applying for? Now, I'm going to run through these a little bit more quickly, because these are some tips that I'm sure you're familiar with. You've heard time and time again, but it's always good to refresh on them. So obviously your CV, your CV or your resume doesn't simply provide an employer or a prospective employer what your work history has been. It also talks very loud and clear about your credentials and what you bring to the table. So it is important to highlight the knowledge, the skills, the experience. And if you don't have that, like I said before, you should be looking to gain that somehow. Find a way to volunteer, find a way to get some industry knowledge, firsthand experience, because that's something that they're going to be looking at. Also, the language that you use has to be assertive and has to demonstrate value, even in written form. So a lot of times, I've put a couple of examples here. You need to be very clear with how you communicate. So an example here is perhaps as an objective. You would put, I have a great passion for football and would really like the opportunity to work for your organization. Well, perhaps instead you could put something along the lines of, I'm convinced my successful track record in sales or in media or in IT or whatever, my languages, my training will add value to your organization's sponsorship team to secure new partnerships at a national and international level. So you're switching it up a little bit. You're putting yourself in their position, and you're looking at what their objectives are. And obviously this is just, an objective. Then in the CV, you would have to prove what you've done in your track record to demonstrate to them that you could add value to their organization. Like it says here, the number one reason that candidatures get discarded, it's because of lack of clarity. So if you don't know what you want, you will not get hired. So think about that, take a couple minutes to reflect on some of these tips. Right, now, tips for successful CVs and cover letters. Again, like I said before, the fact that you're a fan should not be your unique selling point, because there's thousands, millions of fans all over the world for a lot of these clubs, a lot of these sports properties. They will want to hire you for your business skills. Now, let me repeat that. They will want to hire you for your business skills in a particular discipline. So the more you can prove to them that you can add value from a business standpoint, the better position you're going to be in. So very important, if you already, like I said before from the beginning, if you already have experience in another sector, how you can leverage those skills, and more importantly, how you demonstrate that to the potential employer. Of course, employers look for candidates who will meet the organization's own needs and not for one who is simply looking to meet his or her own goals. This is an important point, and one that I think gets overlooked often because, and this is human nature, we're focused on our goals, on our objectives, on our aspirations, and that's absolutely fine to be very clear on what you want to do and where you want to go. But that should only be 50% of what your focus should be. You know, it's like a coin, it has two sides. The other side of that coin should be how the organization, or rather how you can add value to the organization and how you can start putting yourself in that position. In other words, anticipate, do research, understand what are the problems, what are the issues, what are the opportunities for a particular club or a particular company or a particular agency or a particular media outlet. Understand what are their objectives, what are their challenges, what are their opportunities. And the more you know about that and the more you research on that, the better position you're going to be in when it comes to talk to these people, because it's not just going to be about you and what you want. It's going to be about you and what you want, but also about them and how you can add value to them. And that's a lot of the times, especially for younger people, a lot of it, you know, because of inexperience, that's the second half that gets overlooked, and one that, you know, those that really take time to focus on have better opportunities to optimize their chances. And of course, you know, you're looking to work in football, you're looking to work in sport, add as much relevant experience in that field. And even if you don't have that, even if you have a lot of corporate, you know, expertise or experience, try to find ways where maybe you can volunteer for an hour a week, where you're putting it on your CV and you're saying, well, I'm volunteering in this club doing X, Y, or Z, or I've participated in this project, or I've done, you know, this outreach program with this organization in sports. So whatever it is, the more you can collaborate, the more you can get out there and build relationships so that you can put that on your CV. That's going to be, you know, a key for you to really optimize your chances. So those are key things to keep in the back of your head when you're putting together your CV, particularly. You know, don't just write all about you and your experience. Put yourself in the position of the employer and what they would like to see. And if you think that you're lacking in a certain area, identify it and go fill that gap, whether it's, you know, gaining more experience or gaining more knowledge or doing a course or, you know, whatever it is that you've identified. Find a way that you can fill it so that your CV looks complete. Now, most common mistake, like I said before, candidates only focusing on their own objectives. So we've talked about that just a minute ago. Sports organizations receive thousands of CVs. So why is yours any different? So take time to reflect that, because a lot of times people don't really take a moment to think about that. There's lots and lots of people who are sending in you know, CVs, applying for jobs. And you really got to differentiate yourself. So I'm going to tell you a tip in just a moment that we like to recommend here at SBI. And it's had a lot of success with a lot of the people that we've trained and that we've coached. So stay tuned for that next slide. But before that, a couple of things to remember. Ask not what the club or the organization can do for you, but focus on what you can do for the club, the organization. And when I say club or organization, it's, you know, it can be a company, it can be a media outlet, it can be an agency, it can be a sports law firm, doesn't matter, but always put yourself in the position of the other side and what you can do for them. Now, I'm going to give you a tip that works very well. It takes a little effort, it takes a little bit of time, but it's what we like to call a self-candidature. Now, what do we mean by a self-candidature? Well, you probably noticed, if you've been following the football industry, that it's a very closed sector. And the reality is, and you know, there's some statistics out there that say that around 75% of the jobs in football are not publicly advertised. And specifically in some countries, a lot of them are, you know, not even advertised at all. So you really have to know people, you really have to be in the know to get those types of jobs. So it can be a challenge a lot of times you may think, well, how do I get a job in football if I don't know where those jobs are? Well, here's a tip you can do to really counter that challenge. And what that is find an organization or do a list of a few, companies, clubs, media outlets, firms, whatever, any companies that you want to target, and then make a list, and of that list, select 2 or 3 and start researching them. I mean, like I said before, now there's no lack of information. You can go online and go to the clubs or the organization's websites. You can follow them on social media. There's lots of information online and the internet. So the more information you can gather, the more you can research, the more you're going to start finding out how the club operates, what are their objectives, what are their challenges, and the sooner you can do that, then you begin to identify areas. And once you begin doing that research, you're going to see that you're going to find challenges. And when you find a particular challenge at an organization, what I encourage you to do is to send in a report, any type of research report, and where you really take time to position yourself more so than as a candidate, as a consultant. Think of yourself as a consultant and say, okay, well, I've done a lot of research. I've put in a lot of time understanding what the challenges and what the opportunities are for this particular organization, and put together a report and send it to them. And you're going to see that many times, they won't reply, but a lot of the times, and I can tell you this from our experience and the people that we've coached, a lot of the times this has a very different response, because what you're doing there is basically you're saying to the other side, you don't know me from anything, but I'm already giving you value from day one. I've done research on this particular area. And of course, that's a point where, you're going to need to spend some time. So think of an organization where you want to work. Maybe you want to work in, in a sports law firm. Well, research what that sports law firm does. What are some of the cases that they've dealt with before? Look in the media. And again, some of this information will not be as easily available, but the more you research, the more you're going to be in a position to find that. And then send a report or send some type of dossier where you say, well, I've seen your company and I recommend this, that, and the other. Imagine that if you get that on your desk in comparison to the hundreds of other applications, and you see this one coming in that has value, that has differentiation, and that is adding, from day one with them not even knowing. It goes a long way. Now, it takes effort, it takes time, but if you do this consistently, you're going to see that eventually opportunities are going to come. And I can guarantee you that even the responses, even if a particular company doesn't, ask you in for an interview or for a chat, it's going to be a much different response than if you just send your CV and, like everybody else. So think about that. Now, I want to share with you a couple of anecdotes. And, again, there's a lot of people that we coach and that we have in our programs throughout the year. And in one particular instance, and I always mention this anecdote because it really stuck with me. We had a meeting in Portugal, in fact, with Sporting Portugal. We had a meeting with their digital team because we were working on a project with them. And when I arrived to that meeting, there was an American guy who was the social media manager, social and digital. So he was an American guy. So after our meeting, I, just out of curiosity, I said, me growing up in North America, I said, hey, it's quite funny. You're from North America. How did you end up here working for Sporting? And then basically he told me, and he said, well, I'm half Portuguese and half American. I've been living here in Lisbon for about 5 years. And I've always been passionate since I was a kid about Sporting Lisbon, Sporting Portugal. And I said, oh, wow, okay, fantastic. And he said, and then I asked him, well, how did you get the job? And he said, well, actually, what I did is I did a benchmark report where I looked at every single club in the first and second division in Portugal. I looked at what they were doing. This was a few years back when, social media was just starting out. And, basically he told me I did a benchmarking report on how they're using social media, what channels are they using, how they're using them. And I provided them a report for, the clubs in the first and second division. And I said, oh, wow, fantastic. It must have taken a lot of hard work. And he said, yeah, well, I mean, I spent a few weekends on it, but when I had it ready, I sent it to the club. And then I was curious and I said, well, what happened then? And he said, well, when I sent it in, the next day I got a call and, the person at the club called me in and he said, we'd like to have you in for a chat. So I came in for the chat, he said, And from that chat, that same day, they started giving me tasks and projects, and they sort of kept me in as an intern. And 3 years on, I am now the social and digital manager here at the club. So, that story always stuck with me, because when he told me that, I said, you know what, I have to really acknowledge you for that, because it's exactly what we recommend to our young people and the people who are really looking to get ahead in this sector. So, remember a while back ago, I was talking about who's interested and who's committed. Well, this guy was committed. This guy put in the hard work. He was there doing this benchmarking report for, I'm sure, several weeks, and really, putting it as perfect as he could. The other thing that you should really remember is that when you put this type of document together, it doesn't really matter if you don't have the inside information, because number one, if you do the right research, you're probably going to be along the right lines of the strategy or the objectives of the club. But even if you miss the mark, the initiative, the proactiveness that demonstrates to the other side is impressive, because they're going to say, well, actually, this doesn't really fit in with where we want to go, but this guy's giving us some good ideas on this, that, or the other. So it is very important that that hard work you really dedicate, and not just put something together for the sake of putting it together. Do the research, and like I said before, position yourself as a consultant. And if you do that, you're going to see that you're going to prepare information that is going to be valuable to the other side. And again, it may not be on the first time. I always like to use the analogy of football as well. I mean, you look at the best goal scorers of all time, guys like first guy that comes to mind, I don't know why, is Ruud van Nistelrooy. The guy, every time he got the ball, he was shooting to the net, and 9 times out of the 10 he wasn't hitting the mark. But every once in a while he would put in the goal in, and the more he shot, the more opportunities he got to score. And the great goal scorers are like that. So same thing here. You may not get it after the first, second, or third attempt, but if you're consistently, and the other thing is, once you develop a template, or once you develop a work work process, it's going to be easier for you to replicate, and eventually you're going to find that an organization is going to come back to you. The other thing about this is, don't always go for your dream club or your dream organization first. Like I said before, do a list, but maybe start with the bottom of the list, because the other thing is that the lower you go in the divisions and in the clubs, the more need they have for help and for resources. So if you target, if you say my dream is to work as the CEO of Manchester United, that's a very aggressive goal, and of course that's not to say that you won't ever achieve that if you really work hard. But there's only one CEO in Manchester United, so it's a difficult job to get. But if you say, well, my job is to work in the marketing department in a football club, maybe start with the second division club and send them this report, and you're going to see that you may have more opportunities of getting your foot in the door there, because they're going to lack more resources, they're going to need more help. And especially if you can find a way to sell yourself and to position yourself as a consultant that can add value, that's going to go a long way. Okay, let me grab a drink of water, because I've been told that I speak a little bit fast, so I'm going to pace myself. And while I do that, you guys can take time to sink that in. I'll also say hello to our Instagram community who's following live. And I'm sure that a lot of you will be listening in later on. So hello to all of our Instagram followers. Nice to have you joining us tonight. Right, so let's move on to the next point, which is networking and contacts. Like I said before, a network is essential in any sector, but in a competitive field, and this is not just sports. You look at the music industry, you look at the fashion industry, all these sectors that are very competitive. You need to really be connecting with people. You need to be building relationships, because that is one of your most powerful assets. When you connect with people directly, that really leverages your chances of success, because it gives you an opportunity to, constantly be meeting and talking to influencers. The thing about it, though, is it takes hard work. Networking is work. And if you've ever been to a conference and if you've ever been to a networking event, you're going to see that, there's obviously the great opportunity to engage with people, but it's work. You got to get out there. You got to shake hands. You got to know how to position yourself. And the more you do that, the more comfortable you get at. So I would definitely encourage you to start building a network. And if you haven't started yet, you're probably in the best day to start today. Connecting with people on LinkedIn, reaching out to people on Twitter, Obviously going to live events. The more you can get out there, the more you can do outreach initiatives to get in touch with people, the better it is, because you're going to meet people and you're going to find the right individuals that can at one point help you out. Now, having said that, there is the right way to network and the wrong way to network, and a lot of the times people do it wrong and they get it wrong. And it's going back to the point I mentioned before. The mistake that people make is that they go to people at events or at conferences and they shake people's hand and they say, oh, by the way, I'm looking for a job in sport. If you know of anything, here's my CV, here's my card. I'm really passionate and I'm really open. Here's my CV, and thank you very much. You know what they do with that CV or with that business card is they put it at the bottom of the pile or they throw it away. That's the reality. You know why? Because they don't know you. And if they don't know you, they don't trust you. So why would they give you a job, right? I always like to talk about this initiative, or rather this example. Just picture yourself driving down the road and you see someone there hitchhiking. Would you pick them up? Probably not, right? Because you don't trust them and you don't know who they are. They may be the nicest individuals. They may be, the most kind persons on earth. But if you're driving down and you see them, you think, well, it's too much of a risk. I'm not going to pick them up, right? Of course. But what if someone says to you and they call you and they say, hey, my friend is stuck out in the road. If you're passing by, do you mind picking him up? He's a real good friend of mine and I've known him for a long time. Of course you'd pick him up, right? And you'd say, oh, great. And you'd probably have a great chat and you'd build a nice relationship. But it's all about that trust. So when you go to conferences and when you're giving out your CV or when you're talking to people and they don't know you and right away you're asking, well, people get put off and people don't like that because they don't know you. They don't trust you. So you got to build that trust. Same thing if you're connecting with people online on LinkedIn or on Twitter. Don't ask for opportunities. Don't be someone that is the person that asks, because that puts people off. Because why would they give something to you if they don't know you? Think about it. When someone comes to you and asks you for something and you don't know them, you don't do it, right? But this is the tip and this is the key here. How do you do it then? Well, it all goes back to what I mentioned before, adding value. How do you add value? Well, research who they are, what they do, what is their job about? And maybe what you can do when you meet them is you say, oh, by the way, I know that you're working in the marketing department for X club or X company. You know what? I recently read a report about marketing in sports or something. So that's where preparation is important. Whenever you're going to a conference, think about how you're going to connect with people. But if you're adding value from day one, and if you say to someone, oh, by the way, I'm gonna let's exchange cards and I'll send you this report which I think could be of value to you moving forward. What does that do? Well, people go away with a different impression of you, and they remember you and they think, oh yeah, that guy who offered to help. Yeah, and then next time, whenever it comes down to for you to contact them, they'll remember you in a different way. You've already will have established that trust. So it's very important to really keep that in the back of your mind and not just focus on you. Focus always, always, always on the other side and look at what could add value to them. And the sooner you begin thinking like that, the more the doors are going to open, the more the people are going to want to engage with you, because it's human nature. We're more engaged with people that are looking to add value. And then of course, when someone adds value to us, what do we want to do in return? Well, we want to help people. If you've helped me, of course I'd like to help you. But when you're in a position where you are sort of the underdog, for a lack of a better word, well, you always have to be the one that's adding value first. So when you go to conferences, do research, look at who's going to be out there and have something prepared. Have your talking points. I always say it's good to have a little cheat sheet, put a few talking points and prepare and say, okay, I know these guys are going to be speaking at this event. When I meet them, I'm going to, talk to them about this. And when you put that down in your notes, always put in what value you're going to give. And that should be your objective. Okay, I know this guy's speaking at this conference. Rather than me going up to him and saying, oh, I have this business venture, or I have this opportunity that I want to talk to you about, or I'm looking for a job. You could go to them and say, oh, great chat. I really enjoyed it. It was really inspiring. If it is, of course. I've been doing some research on this, so let's exchange cards, and I'd love to show you what this research is all about, or
you get what I mean. Obviously, you have to adapt it to each situation, but the main thing is to remember to add value first rather than, going in for the ask, which is what a lot of people do and what puts people off. So how do you network? Well, as I said before, you could do it through LinkedIn. You join some groups, you connect with influencers, you meet with people, but always, always, always add value first. Same thing, you can go to conferences. That's another way that you can expand your network. Reaching out to executives. Of course, a lot of this takes work. LinkedIn, I always say that you gotta have a strategy and you gotta work LinkedIn. It's not a social network, it's a professional network. So you really have to build a strategy and have the right profile, but also know how to connect with the people that you want to get in touch with. Conferences, of course, this is great because this is the place where everybody meets. The only drawback to that is they're expensive. Delegate passes, if you've ever been to an industry conference, they're usually anywhere from 500 to thousands and thousands of euros. Are perhaps some of them are a little bit more on the less expensive side, but usually over 200, 300 euros is the minimum you'll pay for a delegate pass. And that's usually for a couple of days. But the advantage of that is that you get everybody in one place. You get a chance to network. They're events that are built for this. They're meant for people to expand their knowledge and build their relationships. So that's how you can expand your network. By the way, I'm going through a lot of this a little bit quickly, but there will be an opportunity for questions at the end of this, and I'll also leave my details if you want to reach out to me after. If you have any particular questions, I'll leave my details so you can always reach me via email or LinkedIn or social media. Another thing that you should consider is mentorship. This is important, like I said before. Now, the only drawback here is that not everybody has access to a mentor. So you can read some books, you can do some courses, or if you're lucky enough to have some friends or have some family members that are already working in sport, they may be able to guide you and mentor you. But it is very important that you have some type of mentorship and guidance because, like I said before, it's a competitive industry. It's competitive. It's hard work. And as it usually happens when we're in a situation where we put in a lot of hard work and we don't see results, we can get disappointed and we can throw in the towel. And that's where the mentors are going to come in, and that's where they're going to guide you, and that's where it's going to help you optimize your opportunities. So the sooner you can start thinking about finding someone to have as a mentor, and of course at SBI, that's what we do, right? That's our whole purpose. That's our mission. It's to help people get ahead, and we mentor them when they do our programs. So to summarize, and then we'll wrap this up relatively quickly because I think we're going a little bit over the time here, and I want to really get to your questions. So the success in football or the sports industry will depend on several factors. Number one, having clarity on your career objectives. So try and get as clear and as specific as you can as to where you want to go. Number two, you got to prove that you have the knowledge, that you have the skills, that you have the experience, and that you understand the industry from a business standpoint. So that's the key, proving how you can add value based on the skills, the experience, and that you understand the business side of football. Number three, you got to create a strong network. You got to build that contact base, and it takes time. It takes a lot of effort. It's something that you should build month after month, year after year, and nurture those relationships, because it's not just about getting in a contact and that's it. No, build those relationships with time, and stay in touch with people, add value consistently, and that's really how you nurture those relationships and build those key networks. And then, like I said earlier, if you're able to find a mentor, if you're able to find someone who can guide you and who can help you along the way, that's a success factor that we've seen. I mean, that's something that we've seen, that the people who get ahead really have someone that supports them and guides them along the way. So at this point, you may be thinking, well, what if I lack the experience? Maybe I don't have the experience. Maybe I don't have the contact. Maybe I don't necessarily have the knowledge of football. I don't know where I could get someone to mentor me and provide me with this career guidance and support. How can I get ahead and understand the business side of football? How will I demonstrate to these organizations in football my full potential? And this is something that is very, very key, and that I think a lot of the times people will identify themselves. And maybe you can say yes in the chat box after I mention what I mean here. Type yes if you are not working in football, but deep inside of you, you think, I know I would work and I know I would do a really good job. It's just a matter of me demonstrating that to the other side. But I know I could do the job. I mean, I have experience and I have knowledge, and I've seen people that perhaps even have, less experience than me that are working in this sector. So type yes in the chat box if you feel this and if this resonates with you. And it's absolutely normal to feel this, because it's true. Many times we know that we have the skills and we know that we have the background that we could be using in a sector such as football or sports, but we haven't really found the right way or the right approach. And if that is the case, I see a few people type in yes, okay, good. So it's absolutely normal to feel that way, and most people that started working in football felt like that before, and it was the right approach and the right strategy that they took to leverage their skills and their education and their background and their network that allowed them to take that next step. So it's absolutely normal if you feel that, and it's actually a good sign, because it demonstrates that you have everything you need. It's just a matter of having the right guidance and the right plan to start focusing. The last thing before we turn it over to your questions is, this is a formula that I found a while back ago, and I thought it was very interesting. And it basically says that knowledge plus skills, and you see that they're in a bracket, times attitude equals career success. And what I mean by that is that you may have great knowledge and you may have a lot of experience and you may have a lot of skills, or you may be working on them, or even if you don't have a great deal of knowledge on the business side of sport, or you don't necessarily have the skill set, it doesn't really matter all that much. Yes, they're important, and that's why they're in this formula. But the multiplier, the one that really takes you to the next level, is the attitude, is the hard work, it's the passion, it's the dedication, and it's the drive that you have, because that's what people want to see, and that's what takes you to the next step. And I can tell you from my own personal path, I don't come from the football industry. I never played football. I didn't work before in the sports or in the football industry, but I started my own career initially as a sports journalist, covering very lower division teams and clubs and events. Eventually, after a certain number of time, I was able to create a career out of that. I became a journalist. I became an accredited journalist, covering major events, doing work for some important media outlets, both in Spain and Latin America. So all of that led to me then eventually finding my path and helping people get to where they want to go based on my own path and my own way. But what I mean by that is that you don't need to come from a sporting background. You don't need to be a former player. You don't need to have worked in the sports industry before. If you have the right attitude, if you're committed, remember I said that before at the beginning, are you interested or are you committed? If you're committed, opportunities are there. Opportunities are there. It's just that they're waiting for those people that have the patience. This is important as well, and I'll finish with this. Have the patience with your long-term goals, but be very driven and be very hungry every day that you wake up, and every day go to bed and think, have I done enough to get to where I want to go? And if the answer is yes, eventually you're going to find that you're going to get the results, because the patience is long term, but the hard work, the attitude, the nonstop hunger is day in, day out. So that's it, guys. Thank you very much. I've run over time. Thank you for spending time with me tonight. Let's turn it over for your questions. If you're interested in knowing more about any tips that you want to talk about, whether it's your own particular situation, or if you want to talk about the course and what it entails, go ahead and type them in the chat box. I'll wait while some of those come in, and then we can begin to tackle them. So, Jose Luis, we have a question from Jose Luis. Thank you, Jose Luis. It's a two-part question, so let me read it here. After a while, you have been in contact with someone through Twitter or LinkedIn, interacting and exchanging posts and content. Is a good point to ask for a position, or if that person's now knows about one? Okay, so first question, if you've been in contact with someone, if you've established a certain rapport, I would tend to say that before asking for anything about a position, what type of interaction has it been? Has it been one where you've been adding value? Has it been one where you've been sharing information? Has it been one where you've been, really connecting with the other side? And if that is the case, I'm sure that you could always just throw it in there and say, hey, by the way, I'm working on a career on this, this part of the industry. If there's anything that I can do at some point, let me know, and I'd be willing to help out. So that type of thing, yeah, definitely. But you're going to be able to gauge that yourself by knowing what type of interactions you've had with these contacts on LinkedIn and on social media. So focus always on making sure that you've been adding value. And if that's the case, there will come a point where if there's enough trust, they will want to help you. And if, and it's okay to, to go to them and go with something very specific and very clear. That's the other thing that I would say. Don't just go in and saying, hey, do you have an opportunity for me or a job? Be very clear and say, oh, I'm thinking about pursuing this project or this career, or, do you have any suggestions, or can I learn from you? That's also another good question, because you're putting in the other person willingness to help without anything in return. So I'm interested in learning, how did you get to where you're at? And that's sort of more taking the mentorship angle. So think about it, engage it yourself. But if it's a situation where you're asking without necessarily having that trust, make sure you establish that first. But very good question. If you are contacted for a team that you are not fan, what do you suggest to answer when they ask which one of your favorite team? How do you handle it? Okay, very good point. Sorry, I'm just grabbing a little bit of water. That's a very good question. I think you always have to be honest. Having said that, people will not hire you just because of your colors. They will hire you because of your skills and the value you will add. And I would say, and this is important from my perspective, is if you want to work in the business side of football, always separate personal from professional. You can be the fan of a particular club, but it's always important to be very professional and to say, I want this team to succeed because I'm working for this team, or I will be working for this team. So it is very important that you communicate that to them, that, even though you may not be the fan of a particular club, and you don't necessarily have to say, I'm of the opposing team and I've never liked your club. Obviously not, right? That's not going to take you anywhere. But what you can say is, I've always enjoyed watching football. This hasn't been my club. My club has been X, but I've been I've been following this club, and I'm really interested in what you guys are doing and where you're taking, your business objectives and what the organization is doing. So it's always about how you position it as well. So, but that's a very good point. I mean, you don't want to necessarily lie to them, but at the same time, you want to be, careful as to how you separate your personal and your professional side. So thank you very much, Jose Luis. That's been really two key questions that I'm sure a lot of people would benefit from, and a lot of the times that people have certain doubts about. So very, very good questions, Jose Luis, and I know you always engage with us, so thank you for participating. Let's see if there's a few more questions. Any questions coming through? Let's just check through some of our other channels. We have a question here through a DM through Twitter. So person says, about the program, how will it help me after I finish this program if I decide to enroll in getting a position in a football club or organization? Okay, so very good question from T_B5. Okay, I don't have the handle there, but okay, very good question about the course. Yeah, I mean, essentially what we do in the program is we provide you with the knowledge, but we also put you in contact with influencers and decision makers, whether it's through the cohort or also, from our network. So we will guide you. We will make sure that we know what your objective is as far as obtaining a job or an opportunity in football. And we'll make sure that, the course is delivered in a way where it adds value to you, because we're constantly checking in with our students, and we're constantly checking in. Okay, how are you doing? Where do you want to go? And of course, some of our students are more proactive than others, but you're going to see in our sessions, they're very interactive. It's not just a one-way street. We're always asking, we're always challenging people to think, to understand the business of football, so that when you finish the program, you see it in a different, with a different perspective. So thank you for that great question. Okay, I don't know if there's any more questions coming through, unless there's any from social media. So while we check here with our team, if there's anything coming in. Okay, we got one here from Gabriela Cerda 3. Maybe that's the one that came through Twitter. No, this is a different one. How much time do you think is the correct in a job? I mean, how longer you must be there? Okay, very good question. Very, very good question. And I think, there is no right or wrong answer to that. What I would say to you is that you should always look to strike the balance between, and again, it seems like a cop-out. It seems like an answer that is not going to add a lot, but it's really what I think is what you should consider. What I mean is, you should always be looking to progress. You should always be looking for more, obviously, but at the same time, it's always good to be appreciative and be aware of where you're at and what you have. And let me give you an example. There's people that we've worked with and that have done our programs that are working for a particular football club, right? And a few of them have worked for young guys, started out and got really good opportunities to work for top clubs in the Premier League and La Liga, a couple of them. Now, of course, they were young guys, so they were entry-level positions. And after a while, they thought, well, maybe this is I don't really like it all that much because it's a lot of work. And then they decided to leave. One, on a couple of occasions, one of them decided to leave, and the other one as well. And then they had a hard time, getting back into the sports industry, because it's not all that easy to go from one club to another and continue growing in the sports industry. Sometimes it takes a little bit of time. So I think, to answer your question, is you got to strike the right balance. If you're at a job where you think you've learned everything, where you think you've taken everything away, where you think it's going to add to your CV experience, then probably that's the time that you should start considering to move to the next step. But if you think, well, maybe I'm ready to learn a little bit more here, and I can grow a little bit more before my next move, keep that in the back of your mind too. So hopefully, Gabriela, that adds a little bit of insight. Let me know if that helps at all. But I think it's a personal decision, and as long as you think that you're ready to move on, then listen to your gut as well. Listen to your gut, but when I say listen to your gut, it means listen to your heart and your head as well. So keep that in the back of your mind, Gabriela. But very good question, and one that I'm sure that you're going to navigate as you see on your own, because that's nobody is within you, and you better than anybody will know when it's the right moment. But keep those two things in mind, and you'll be fine. So thank you, Gabriela. Thank you so much for joining tonight and for your question. Let me see here. I think there's a couple there that are coming in, but I can't seem to read here. We have a question here from 37374. Okay, so is it proper to put up a document of a club or organization benchmark and send it to them at the first time of emailing without prior contact? Well, this depends. I mean, you can do it. There's no better way than to test. So do something, and first of all, send it, see what the reaction is. If you don't get any reaction, then maybe next time you send it to another organization, maybe you should call them first and say, hey, I'm putting together this report. Can you tell me which email I can send it to? Maybe that's a better approach. But there's no right and wrong answer, because every club is different. Every person is different. You don't know the person that's reading the email or picking up the phone, what type of person they are or how open they are to receive anything. So it will be a mixed bag completely. So my advice would be for you to test. And that's why you should do a list of different clubs, organizations, clubs, etc., and continuously test and have a spreadsheet. Put yourself a spreadsheet on Excel and say, okay, on this date, I send this. And I followed up and I called or I emailed, and have a list. And then you're going to be able to, remember each one And then when it comes time to maybe follow up and say, hey, by the way, I sent this over, then you can see. So George, okay. Nice to see you connecting, George, and thank you for the questions. I just saw your number there, but now it's nice to put a name. So thank you, George, for your question. My second question is, does the degree really matter, or more important is experience in the industry? Oh, sorry, there's a couple of questions from Martina. Hi, Martina. Thank you for joining us tonight. Do you think that the course could add more value to a BA degree in football business and marketing, or is it better to do a master's degree? Well, Martina, to tell you, based on our experience, doesn't really matter which course you do. And it's going to sound a little bit shocking coming from me, because you'd probably be expecting me to say our course, the short course, is better. Doesn't really matter. At the end of the day, let me clarify that. It matters in the sense that each course has, or each program has added value, of course, but it's what you do with those programs. It's how you use them and how clear you are on your vision and what you do afterwards. You'd be surprised how many times people come to us after doing FIFA Masters and different programs that are fantastic. But then they're looking for jobs because they still haven't found them. And the reason is, it doesn't really matter what the degree that you have. What matters is how you use it, how you leverage it, how you connect with it. And of course, there's some programs that you pay for what you get for. We have another program that is 6,500 euros, and it's an 8-month program, and it's a big network. It includes a live event in Barcelona, so it's a different type of program. What I would say to you is, if you're not sure of where you want to go, or you're still undecided and you don't want to make an investment in a program that is going to be more expensive, this course offers you the alternative to understand the business and connect with people, gain a very, very clear vision, and then you may be at a point where you think, I don't need to go for the longer course. Or maybe you're at a point where you think, okay, I'd like to complete this, I'm going to give it a shot after a few months, and it really depends on what your objective is. But I would say that it doesn't really I don't want to be misinterpreted with my response, because there's really fantastic programs out there. And when I mentioned the FIFA Master before, it's really one of the top programs out there. It's one of the best investments that can be made, because they give you fantastic networking opportunities, and they give you fantastic learning experiences, of course. So this is not to say that I want to talk about any specific program, but what I mean is, the more clear you are on where you want to go, the more you're going to be able to leverage no matter which course you do. I don't know if that makes sense, but hopefully I've been able to answer the question, Martina. The second part is, does the degree really matter, or is it more important to gain experience? Well, it's a bit of both, but to be honest, it's more about a mix between experience, background. What the degree does, it's a security. It's an added bonus, so to say, because when the employer looks at it, they say, okay, this person has some experience, they have relevant background. Oh, and by the way, they've done this degree, so it shows that they have a clear path as to where they want to go. So that would be my response, Martina. So I would say that depends where you're at. If you really know let me finish off by saying this: no matter which course you decide to do, before you do it, be as clear as you can as to why you're doing it. And that's going to give you your answer as to which one is better for you. Because if you're ready to make a full investment in a longer program, definitely go for a master's or for a BA. If you're at the moment where you're thinking about entering the industry and you're thinking that there's other alternatives, maybe don't make such a big investment and start with a short program that will allow you to, gain an understanding. And at the end of the day, when you compare, a course such as this one, which is 695 euros, which is it's a big investment. I'm not saying it isn't, but if you compare it to a master's program or a degree that it's in the thousands of euros, it's not that much of a risk. So hopefully that helps. Thank you. I would like to work in digital marketing in sports, says Martina. Great. Well, I mean, this course offers that. We also have another course on digital marketing and social media that started this week, in fact, so that we're still taking candidatures. So feel free to check out our website, Martina, at sbibarcelona.com, and you'll see the different offer that we have available. And maybe there's something for you. And if there isn't something for you, I'm sure that there's something for you in a different program or in a different experience. But always know that the SBI community is there for you to add value in whatever we can, and please feel free to connect with us. So thank you for your question, Martina. Great question, great point. Vasilios, hi Vasilios. Thank you for joining. Hello, do you think it's a good choice to combine sports psychology and sports management? Sorry if my question's out of topic. No, absolutely not. Absolutely not. Sports psychology, sports management go hand in hand in many ways. When you think about it, depends on what you mean by specific sports psychology, if you want to work with athletes. But at the end of the day, let's say you want to work as a sports psychologist and you want to work with athletes. Athletes, many times, they're not just motivated on what's happening on the pitch. They also have, like every one of us, they're humans. They want to know about perhaps their future and understand, the business side. So that's where someone with a background that is, mixed can definitely help and can add value to the sector. So it's not that they go hand in hand directly, but all of the industry is one. So you're going to need psychology for marketing as well, because you're going to need to understand the client, you're going to need to understand the fan, you're going to need to understand the sponsor. So from a psychology perspective, that's important. But from a performance psychology side of things, which I think is what you mean, it is also important, because nowadays you're going to see that data is the key point with all of this. And in order to be able to manage and assess that data and interpret it, you need to have a sports marketing or sports management background. So yeah, I definitely think it's good to combine, and the more you can bring those skills together, the better. So definitely, Vasilius. So thank you for that question. A couple more questions here. Sorry, I missed. Julia was saying before from the exercise. She was talking about that. We see Theo. Hi, Theo. Nice to see you. Theo, for example, is a person that had some nice conversations with, who's joined the program. He's living in San Francisco. Hi, Theo. He's decided to do this course, and we're convinced that it's going to add a lot of value to him, and we're gonna take him on board and make sure that we optimize his opportunities. And the other thing that I would say to you is that if you look at what we have built online as far as the community, you're going to see that it's a very engaged community. And the reason for that is because we've never believed in just doing the course for the sake of doing it. We've really created a connection with a lot of our students, and I would say with most of our students. We're keen to know where they're at, what they're doing, and we're always asking them. And in fact, you're going to see that many times we reach out to them and we say, hey, what are you doing? A couple of them now are working at FIFA. A couple of them are working at top clubs. And for us, it's a big, big honor. And to say, hey, someone that did our program is now working in these organizations. Not to say that it was our course that did it, because that would be arrogant of us, and that would be, taking away from their credit. It was their own success and their own path. But if our little grain of salt and our little help was able to guide them along the way, well, that's all we've ever wanted as the mission for SBI. So keep that in mind as well if you're thinking about considering a course with us. That for us, it's not just a transactionary relationship where you do the course and you're on your own. For us, is being part of our community, and the more that we can help, be sure that that's what we're about, and that's why we've been around for the past 5 years and growing and continuing to have success. And we're very excited with the new projects that we're launching, and every year we establish new collaborations. By the way, stay tuned. We have a big announcement coming up in the next couple of weeks for SBI. We have big news, a big partnership that we're going to be announcing. I can't communicate it yet, but stay tuned. That's something that we're very proud of, and that's going to be helping out a lot of our students and a lot of our community. So keep that in the back of your mind as well. That's good. Okay, thank you very much. Okay, no, sorry, Yilmaz from Turkey. Point of view, we should focus on education and communication, I think. What is your thought about that? Yes, definitely. Education is key. Never stop learning. I always say this. You know, even if you listen to a podcast and, you know, about sports marketing or sports business, if you do a course, if you go to a seminar, never stop learning. Read a book. You know, there's plenty of resources out there. Go to the internet, research about your passions. The more you learn, the more you're going to be in a position to understand the industry better, and the more confidence that's going to give you when you have to talk about those things. So always keep that in the back of your mind. So good. Jack Matthews, sorry, I missed the question here from Jack before. He says, Jack, hopefully you're still around. I'm actively looking for an internship as a part of my sports management degree at university. As I'm only starting out in the industry, I do not have contacts within the football industry. What sort of approach should I take when applying for internship jobs? Should I send my CV to clubs and organizations and say, hope for the best? Or should I connect with the club, company in person through LinkedIn? So what I would say is first, do some research on wherever you want to do your internship. Whatever that club is, put yourself in the position and think, put on the hat as if you had already been hired and you had been given a task. And just start researching about the club. How do they do their marketing? How do they do their social media? If it's a club that is nearby that you can go and, you know, go to one of the matches live, what is the match experience like? What type of fans do they have? What type of activations do they do around the stadium? All of that information, gather it. And then when you gather that information, try and establish or try and find areas where you think that, you know, things can be improved or opportunities that could be good for the club. Based on that, prepare something. It doesn't have to be a 10, 20-page dossier. You can put a couple of pages where you put a few paragraphs and say, hey, I'm looking for an internship for my summer program. But by the way, I've put this, report together for you that, maybe it'd be interesting for you to look at. And then, obviously then you can start connecting with people online through LinkedIn. And, I think that could be a good approach for you, Jack. So have a look at that and take in what we said today at the webinar, and always add value first. So even if it is for an internship, and I don't know about your degree or your university, if they arrange this for you or if you have to apply for it, but no matter what the situation is, always add value first. Don't just ask for, what you want in your internship. Give value first and deliver, and you're going to see that the opportunities and the chances of success are going to increase, tenfold. So hopefully that helps. Sasha says, oh, by the way, Sasha was engaging with us earlier with the stadium. So yes, thank you, Sasha, for engaging, and hopefully you're still around. I think I missed your question before. Will you be teaching the class, or are there other teachers for the different classes? Who are they? How are they structured? Thank you. Oh, specifically for the social media 8-week one. Yes. So for the short programs, I will be teaching them. I will be moderating them. Moderating. And what I mean by that is I'm going to be adding value from my experience and from my background. But the real value of the program is that we learn, and this happens in every single course, we learn from each other's experiences, because you may have a background from your part of the world and your experience that you bring to the table that we don't know about. And when it comes to discussing a particular subject, you're going to be adding value from that end. But just like you're going to be adding value, you're going to be learning and understanding, from other members of the cohort, many of them who are already working in the football industry. So from that perspective, you're going to gain an understanding and an awareness from not just our side, which of course we've taken a lot of time. And like I said, we've been doing this for over 5 years. We've done a lot of research. We've worked with a lot of clubs. We've delivered a lot of, keynote presentations. But we always say, you're going to learn as much from us as you're going to learn from each other. And of course, we're going to bring in the content and we're going to bring the relevant information. But it's important to not forget that that's also another learning part. And for the short courses, we have recorded masterclasses with a lot of executives that you can always go back and listen into. So that's the structure for the short courses. Our longer program, which starts in October, this is an 8-month program. This is different because this is every week we have a new speaker that comes from a different club. But like I mentioned before, this is over 6,000 euros and it's a different program. So it really depends on what you want to do. But for the short programs, yes, I am the person that will be leading and moderating those sessions. So thank you, Sasha. Hopefully, you picked up a few tips along the way. So thank you for joining in. And I'm just trying to see here. Siran Kennedy, thank you, Siran. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. I know it's a difficult name in Irish. Okay, good. So we've talked about the different questions from Vasilios. Gabriela, sometimes we prefer not to apply because we think that we are minimum chances to read our CV. Yeah, that's true. But like we said before, it's all about, how we go and approach this. Then we have one from Javier. At the time of applying for a position which is not listed on a career tag, is it better to go to the HR department or to the head of the targeted department? Good question. And the answer to that is try both. Try both. Each club is different, just like every company. I mean, I'm sure you've worked in several different jobs, and one job is different from the other. And although they may have similar structures, there's different individuals that have structured the business in a different way. So same thing with football clubs. Some will be more reliant on their HR department. Some will be more reliant on the head of function. So try both, whether it's at the same time or try one approach first and then another. It's like the A and B testing that they say, right? And my advice would be to try and gain as much understanding from the club as you can or from the organization. And based on that approach it's a matter of testing. There is really no right or wrong answer, but that's a fantastic question. Good. So we've run over by a little bit. Alonso Cruz in Spanish says that he wants to enter the business side of football. He's saying this in Spanish, so I'm translating along the way. He wants to get in contact. Alonso, yes, absolutely. Get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to have a chat. In Spanish, Alonso, por favor, contacta conmigo, con mucho gusto. Podemos hablar y ya podemos mantener una conversación. So thank you, Alonso. And I think we have reached the end of our questions. So thank you. Thank you, everybody, for joining us tonight. It's been a real pleasure, being with you, and I hope that you've picked up a few tips along the way. Anything that you need, irrespective of whether or not you do the course with us, be mindful that our SBI community is there for you to add value. We regularly host these types of free webinars. Many times we bring other executives that they share their knowledge and we offer them for free. So stay tuned for that. And anything you need from us, our community is growing and growing, and it's not just students. It's people that are working in the industry. It's people that are participating in our initiatives. It's our partners. So whatever it is that we can add value to you, be sure to get in touch with us because that's what we're here for. That's what we're here for. We're here for you. So thank you. Thank you for taking the time to listen in. For those that stuck till the end, for those that had to leave, we completely understand. I hope you have a fantastic morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you're connecting from in the world. From Barcelona, goodbye. See you next